release them to the society. And I could see that a lot of governors even say they will give them scholarship, you know. But the thing is, must we suffer before we enjoy this our government? Must there be a challenge, a negative thing that happened before? So, but for me, I think government is just using these children to shine.
Now, away from the issue of the released 119 end bad governance protesters and minors who have been released to Kaduna and Kano state governments, another national issue of concern, this time around affecting the national power grid. Earlier, we're told by one of the dailies that this is the 10th time this year that the national grid has collapsed. We also hear reports that it has also degenerated to 0 megawatts. But the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, has only called it a partial disruption. Now, we also heard some persons also advocating that we move beyond having a national grid to having a centralized super power grid.
Right.
This issue of national grid collapse is becoming what many would call unbecoming in the Nigerian parlance.
Right.
How does the minister and all the persons saddled with this fix it or nip it in the bud?
Well, for me, I think there is need for us to also unbundle Transmission Company of Nigeria. Because if you recall, we don't have issue with generation. We don't have issue with distribution. The problem we have is transmission. Which is the grid, and it belongs to government. So according to the minister, I said it's going to decentralize, which I think if we have it by region, right, that will help. Maybe if collapse, it won't affect the other part. You could recall what the northern part, especially Kaduna, actually faced. Let's look at the economic loss. I was in Kaduna and I have to be in an hotel, and I discovered that they have to run the generator set throughout, and you know how much it is or petrol cost now. So it's a very serious issue that we must look, and it's affecting our economic performance in Nigeria, because once there is no power, it becomes a serious problem, especially for small businesses. Even a barber shop now cannot afford to buy fuel to service his machine or what have you. So the thing is, we must go beyond the rhetorics. We must be serious. How can a country of 230 million cannot generate more than 3,000 megawatts? And that 3,000 megawatts does not. In my area, we are told that we are in band A. Can tell you from these little dry season signs, they have returned to normalcy, where they will just took the light and they will start bringing it every time, so that they will say we are on band A. I think it's a serious issue. I think if Tinubu government can only solve this issue of electricity, Nigeria will celebrate him. And that's why I find it difficult to see our past president not being able to lay their hand on what thing they have actually solved. We have to have that culture of making things work in our country, because every business is tied to that electricity issue. So I think we should unbundle more. Then there is this unbundling that has happened already, but there must be investment from states and from federal government. I noticed that Governor Mba of Enugu is trying to have they have their own commission for electricity and whatever. But the thing is, how much have you invested? You must invest about 50% before you can see people coming to invest. So I expect other states or other regions to go ahead to also invest in electricity generation, distribution, and transmission.
Now what happens to the Electricity Act that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed into law? It has empowered states, but it almost feels as though it's some bureaucratic procedure.
No, it's open, but the investment is very huge. So that's why I said states must be ready to invest in that area, because if you don't invest, people will not come. They are calling international community to come and invest, but it's not a small thing. You must start it and give a possible sign that things can actually happen. Even let's look at the one in which state? Which state is it? Okay, this Alex Oti state. Yes. Is it Abia? Now you remember there is one. It has not also commenced because it needs a lot of investment. So electricity is not what you can just invest in. So you must create that enabling environment. But with that, if government can insist, federal government can insist, all states should go, all 3 states can come together. Actually, I was even expecting NDDC to actually, but NDDC is changed now. It's not in one environment again, and we now have changed it to Ministry of Regional Ministry, whereby it is now region. So if each region can actually work it out, we must unbundle and decentralize the generation of electricity. I think that will give us a better way out.
Now we're also looking at comments coming in from the FCCPC this morning, making headlines on the Business Times, and it's from the angle of consumer protection. A lot of Nigerians who find themselves in the classification of Band A feel that they have been done an injustice. There's also been the minimal downward review of the electricity tariff from the initial 225 naira per kilowatt hour. It is now at 209.23 kilowatts per hour. But let's refer to that headline story before we get Dr. Aliu's thoughts. Now, on the Business Times earlier, we saw the FCPC issue a call to order to discos, saying that they should make electricity affordable, accessible, and reliable, tasking the discos on consumer involvement in electricity bans classification.
Right. I think it's quite interesting that we see FCCPC saying this, because a major issue is accessibility and availability. As we are talking, some people do not still have what we call meter to actually work. Then there's what we call CAPEX and OPEX, where we call capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Now, this same AEDC or DISCOs generally, they have their own operational expenditure. Can they tell us what they are doing for people? Because you recall that now they are making a whole lot this time instead of what they are making before. With introduction of band A, what are they actually expending money for? If a pole fall in your area, you community take the responsibility. If you have downtime, you have to call them overtime before they do. So we must start, because for me, discos only come with portfolio. They don't come with any investment. Even the meter that we have, remember, it is said that they should give us meter, or we should buy meter, and it will be reduced from there. I've bought some meters. Up to now, there's no sign that they are repaying me back the money. So I think it's beyond FCCPC, it's NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. They should do something to make sure that people are actually benefiting. They are not shortchanging, because it appears that they are tilting towards people that are supposed to regulate at the expense of the consumers. So consumers need to be protected, and we must have affordability and accessibility, because if it's not there, it will also reflect on our economy, and that's why development is pretty difficult in our country.
Now, we're looking at some statistics the other day, and we're told that the total number of electricity consumers in Nigeria stands somewhere around 12.82 million Nigerians, and out of that number, only 5.1 are metered. The president was also making a case for disbursements in June's FAC allocations, saying that of the amounts disbursed, 9% is supposed to serve as seed funds under the presidential metering initiative, and this would span for the next 3 years. But do you think at that pace in the next 3 years, this is sufficient enough to cater for unmetered customers who continue to suffer from arbitrary billing?
I want to disagree, because I was expecting president to say, with this our new act on electricity, every state take this, go and start something, because that's what will solve the problem. You know, if you go to a country like South Africa, they have 50,000 megawatts, and what is their population, right? But for Nigeria, we don't have, even if you still go to South Africa, if they see that you are using any electricity that is off grid, maybe solar, they still give you stipends to appreciate you that you didn't bring more tension, more pressure on it. So we must start having that initiation of making sure that every state take responsibility. If not, if you are still doing this national thing, it's going to give us issue. We may not have a way out in 20 years, but with this unbundling, allowing each state, even an industry, a place like Iduyad can decide to generate their power. A place like Ariara Market, a place like Nnewi can decide to do their own generation distribution, because you can now use gas to power. It must not be hydro. You know, before you must look for where there is water, but now you can use gas and water. So I think government needs to insist that each state must take responsibility in terms of even railway, in terms of, look at Lagos, because Lagos now have their own rail, about 2 of it, so you cannot have, you know, intra-city movement. So we must be able to, a state like Lagos State should have their own at least 3, 4, 5 power substation, not only 2 that they have, because there are too many. Even a place like Kano should have independent. Kano is now sharing with a lot. Look at FCT with about 5 states sharing AEDC. There is no way it can be sufficient. We must find a way to add more so that we can really survive well with electricity.
Now, away from the power grid, this issue has now been blamed on vandalism in northern states, where we're told that the 330 kVA transmission lines were vandalized. In keeping with the NSCDC and other security outfits who are saddled with protecting public infrastructure, how does Nigeria optimize the need to actually be seen to protect this infrastructures from vandalism.
Right. We need to automate, and we need to go with technology. You know, in a sane climb, in some climb, right? Not let me say we are sane too, whereby once you just touch anything, there's a monitoring somewhere that is looking at all the power line. That's the way to go, because you cannot stop these vandals. They want to continue to vandalize, especially if you look at it, was traced to those Boko Haram and what have you. So, but if you have a way of doing it before they even tamper it, you are there already. So until we do that, and that's why I agree with that decentralization, so that you can monitor and know that, okay, for Southwest we don't have vandal issue. For Northeast, that's where we have vandal. Then they cannot have a focus. But when you have everything connected together, it will bring a lot of issues. So I think we should look into that, and we should find a way to monitor those things beyond just sitting in our office and expecting weirdness. When it's just like we are being reactive, we should be what? Proactive.
Now, in terms of some of the issues with terrorism, one of the newspapers mirrored in the situation in Sokoto State, where allegedly there is now a new terror group known as the Lakurawas. The Daily Times had that story. Let's just revisit the front page as we look to conclude our conversation this morning in that perspective. You'd find the headline, Sokoto government raises alarm over infiltration of new terror group, Lakurawas sect currently operational in 5 local government areas. In some aspects of the media, Nigeria is winning the war against banditry and terrorism. Others are also highlighting some new groups that are emerging and how they are successful in states like Sokoto, currently operational in 5 local governments, and their operations are unheated. The president has also moved to promote a senior ranking military official, like we saw on the papers this morning. Many are asking, how does that translate into this war in winning banditry and terrorism?
Right. First and foremost, it appeared to be lucrative to engage in banditry in Nigeria, because we have not seen people being, really bring to justice. Most of them, we even hear that some are even pardoned. When you take it with glove hand, you have to take it with iron hand and make sure that at every discovery, you hit them and hit them very. And that's why such thing is actually growing. And we should also blame those state governors. What are they looking at? Now that you have identified them, try to really deal with them and make sure you finish them, so as not to really have a lot of impact on the Nigerians. Then looking at the promotion, I think if there's any other time, this is the best time to keep promoting Nigerian soldiers, because they are in the forefront of fighting the war and they are sacrificing a whole lot. So for me, I think it's a good one. Perhaps I suspect that if that man is not promoted, it may lead to retirement of some soldiers. When you want to bring somebody as the head of affair, it must go beyond other people's rank. You recall when Lagbaja and Co came, a lot of soldiers have to get retired, without getting to the expected age. I think that's what actually happened. So it's what they have been always been doing. So it's better to promote him than to retire people that could be his mate or under him.
Now, this is as much as we can discuss this morning with local stories, and I must say thank you to you, Dr. Aliyu, for taking our time to objectively analyze these issues in the news with us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Well, we're still more to come on the program this morning with our broader conversation. 4-9, we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll be back to dialogue on developments in the news as we build up to our main conversation. Stay with us.
In a world of overwhelming voices where everyone has different opinion on different issues, it is important that we bring the core issue to the fore. Join me, Nancy Banigo, on Softline as we lend our voices to inform and influence your thoughts and actions. This is not just mere talk, it is an invocative program that touches the core of our existence.
Welcome to the world where innovation meets opportunity, where ideas become empires. This is Market TV.
I am Idorian Flannan, and every week I'll be taking you inside the dynamic world of marketing and commercial business.
From groundbreaking startups to big businesses, Market TV brings you the best pricing and latest goods on display.
It's all about understanding your audience and staying ahead of the trends.
Witness the creative processes that drive the various brands.
Join us as we dive deep into the strategies that shape the commercial landscape, from streets to traditional advertising and social media. We cover it all.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or an aspiring entrepreneur, Market TV provides the insights you need to thrive.
This show gave us the tool to turn our vision into reality.
So, if you're ready to master the market, tune into Market TV every Saturday at 6 p.m.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
In this kind of situation now, what if they really no talk to una? Wetin be the way forward?
They go bury our chairman on Thursday. We go remain here.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we no dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first face.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
Step into the heartbeat of the world, where news meets real talk. From breakthroughs in diplomacy to humanitarian challenges and scientific milestones, Global Digest takes you beyond the headlines and straight to the heart of the matter. I am Amma Marcus. Be a part of the world's unfolding stories at 3 p.m. on ADBN, channel 258 on DSTV, and Star Times, channel 140. Global Digest, your window to the world's current affairs, only on Advocate Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, you go fit take help yourself.
You are not a judge, you are not a judge.
Make we talk where we dey see good, and where we know say we no dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first face.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
In a world of overwhelming voices where everyone has different opinion on different issues, it is important that we bring the core issue to the fore. Join me, Nancy Banigo, on Softline as we lend our voices to inform and influence your thoughts and actions. This is not just mere talk, it is an invocative program that touches the core of our existence.
Welcome to the world where innovation meets opportunity, where ideas become empires. This is Market TV.
I am Idorian Flannan, and every week I'll be taking you inside the dynamic world of marketing and commercial business.
From groundbreaking startups to big businesses, Market TV brings you the best pricing and latest goods on display.
It's all about understanding your audience and staying ahead of the trends.
Witness the creative processes that drive the various brands.
Join us as we dive deep into the strategies that shape the commercial landscape. From streets to traditional advertising and social media, we cover it all.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or an aspiring entrepreneur, Market TV provides the insights you need to thrive.
This show gave us the tool to turn our vision into reality.
So, if you're ready to master the market, tune into Market TV every Saturday at 6 p.m.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people they talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
This kind of situation now, what if they really talk to una? Wetin be the way?
Man, on Thursday, we go remain here.
Not talk good where we dey see good, and where we dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first pay.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of our flagship program, Morning Express. It's time now to give you an overview of what the foreign newspapers have as headlines. And quite rightly so, all the papers coming in from across the world this morning have a stint of the headline as it concerns the final results collated at the U.S. presidential elections. Now, to start with this morning, let's look at the first newspaper greeting our focus as we turn our attention to the New York Times. On the New York Times this morning, you'd find as headline, "A splintered nation in suspense as millions of votes are tallied." A splintered nation in suspense as millions of votes are tallied. And you'd find pictures of prominence depicting Americans queuing up to cast their ballots. Now, beneath that, you'd have other reports. Precincts get heavy traffic as U.S. arrives at crossroads. In rural towns, a minding farm and the ballots. Disruptions put tense electorates further on edge. This is also accompanied by pictures of the two lead candidates in the election, VP Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Away from the New York Times, our next focus is the Wall Street Journal. On the Wall Street Journal, beneath the masthead, you'd find the headline, "Trump holds edge in key states." Trump holds edge in key states. Former President Wayne swings North Carolina and leads other battlegrounds as whirlwind campaign ends. You'd also have an infographics depicting states where Donald Trump has garnered 230 votes, leading Kamala Harris, who is also trailing him by 210. While some of the votes not yet tallied include 98, with 270 votes in the balance in the Electoral College. Now, you'd need that margin to actually win. On the rider, Election Day rally gives leads to U.S. stock, talking about the stock market and what the polls have managed to swing in the favor of those who are engaged in buying. Now, away from the Wall Street Journal, let's also turn our attention to the Washington Post. On the Washington Post this Wednesday, you'd find supporters of Donald Trump wearing the MAGA hats, Make America Great Again, as the headline reads. Trump gains grounds. Harris campaign pins hope on blue wall as path to victory narrows. Trump gains grounds. Harris campaign pins hope on blue walls as path to victory narrows. Now, there's quite an intense one here as the elections are coming to a close. Now, more newspapers from the Americas this morning as we turn our attention to U.S. Today. On the front page of U.S. Today, you'd find the headline, "A context like no other has shaken the old order." A context like no other has shaken the world order. Upheaval may have forever reshaped political landscape. Hope, dread, civic duty drives millions to polls. Yard sign brings laugh to campaign, with a comic relief that helps put political tension at ease. Now, above the masthead on U.S. Today, you'd find more top stories, more families scrapping by paychecks to paychecks. Detroit adds pass rusher in trade Cleveland. Those are stories coming in this morning on the U.S. Today. Other American papers of concern also, let's cross over to Houston, where we'd find the publications is greeting the front page of the Houston Chronicle. On the Houston Chronicle this morning, you'd find the headline, "Make It Count." You'd find those queuing to cast their ballots amid rains in Houston, with the caption, "Houston turnout heavy despite rain, with presidential race driving voters. Few hiccups reported as U.S. poll cites as final ballots cast. Houston College bucked trends of low freshman enrollment. Houston colleges buck trends of low freshman enrollments," headlined on the Houston Chronicle. While on the Daily Express, our next paper for concern this morning, you'd find the headline, "First-timer buys face enough tough battle to get on property ladders as value surges. House prices to rise £84,000 in 5 years." And inserted next to that headline on the Daily X, find America's 10th day of election reckoning. Much like the Daily Express, let's also turn our attention to the Daily Mail. On the front page of the Daily Mail this morning, you'd find the header, "For breaking U.S. election news and analysts, as nation decides, experts say result is basically a coin toss. Trump says he would accept results, but only if election is fair. Washington locks down with U.S. bracing itself for civic unrest. Tinderbox America on knife edge" is the headline feature on the Daily Mail. Away from the Daily Mail, let's also take a look at the Financial Times. On the Financial Times this morning, you'd find the headline, "America decides. High-stake race ends. Harris and Trump both sense victory. Polls point to tight results. Anxious world watches on." While away from the Financial Times, let's also take a look at the Daily Telegraph. On the Daily Telegraph this morning, you'd find headlines beneath the masthead. IHT raid puts food security at risk. IHT raid put food security at risk. Tax on farmers would hit production and leave UK more reliant on imports, says suppliers. On the rider, Foreign Office seeks discount on higher private school fees. Netanyahu sacks defense chief in dispute over direction of war. And away from the Daily Telegraph, let's also take a look at the front page of our next newspaper, The Guardian. On The Guardian this morning, you'd find the headline beneath the masthead, Hope and Fear. The prominent picture is that of VP Kamala Harris, as the rider reads, Democrats dare to believe as U.S. votes. Democrats dare to believe as U.S. votes. Moving away from the U.S. election as focused by The Guardian, let's take a look at our next newspaper, The Herald. On The Herald this morning, you'd find the lead story. Ministers must reintroduce tuition fees for Scotland. Academic in warning of pressure on universities. Still in focus is the prominent picture from the U.S. elections with campaign banners, one for Harris, Walz, and the other for Donald Trump. Away from that, let's also cross back and look at more newspapers as our next focus is on the iPaper. On the iPaper this morning, you'd find beneath the masthead the headline story as it reads, America votes for its future and braces for election unrest. White House contests neck and neck after poisonous campaign expected to be the closest election in U.S. history. Global attention is focused on 7 key swing states that will decide whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump becomes president. U.S. public urged to respect peaceful transfer of power, with National Guard on standby in at least 19 states in case of civil unrest or violence, and shops boarded up in Washington, D.C. Attorney General from 46 states issue unprecedented joint statement after Capitol attack 4 years ago. Violence has no place in democratic process. Trump claimed that he has had a very big lead even while tens of millions of voters were queuing at polling stations, and said that his supporters are not violent people. Those are the focuses with straplines under the lead story on the iPaper. Well, away from the iPaper this morning, in keeping with more newspapers, let's also take a look at the front page of The Sun. On The Sun this morning, you'd find headline beneath the masthead, the story, Get me out of trials. Arthritis could exempt Star. That is side by sides, more on the US election. Trump versus Cam, neck and neck. Away from The Sun this morning, let's also look at the Times newspaper. On the Times, it is still focused back to the US presidential election with the headline beneath the masthead. World awaits the outcome of the US presidential election. The Times has the headline, World awaits America's faith. Early exit polls bodes ill for Harris. Huge turnout in key swing states. Trump vows to accept results if election is fair. On the rider, farmers plan to disrupt food chain in protest over inheritance tax. And lastly, our last newspaper on the foreign scene before we call it a wrap on our foreign newspaper review, we'll cross back to the Yorkshire Post in the UK. On the Yorkshire Post this morning, above the masthead are 3 feature stories. The process of renewal begins as Badenoch names shadow cabinets. Why presenters avoid fast fashion. Passing on to the next generation officials is inserted next to that. Whilst beneath the masthead, care plans warning as budget runs dry. 8 in 10 councils face overspend, undermining hopes for NHS. Hugh warns for Trump's danger. The picture of prominence is that of the Royal, Prince Wales, and the Australian conservationist Robert Irwin during a visit to the Signal Hill near Cape Town to discuss the importance of biodiversity. Prince William is said to also be attending the 4th annual Earthshot Prize Award ceremony this evening, with the full story continued on page 5 of the Yorkshire Post. Well, that's all we have on our foreign newspaper review. Be reminded that ADBN Television has an in-house program dedicated to emerging stories from across the globe known as Global Digest, which takes the airwave at 3 p.m. later today. And that would also give you an intro retrospect into how the polls went following the US presidential election, with hopefully a winner by the time the show takes the airwave later today. Well, this is as much as we have on foreign newspapers. We'll take another quick break, and when we return, we'll look at Nigeria's participation at COP29. Much like we saw the Prince of Wales in South Africa for the Earthshot Prize, talking about biodiversity. The need to focus and protect our climate is headlined by this discussion that we'll be having for the next half an hour. Stay with us.
Step into the heartbeat of the world, where news meets real talk. From breakthroughs in diplomacy to humanitarian challenges and scientific milestones, Global Digest takes you beyond the headlines and straight to the heart of the matter. I am Amma Marcus. Be a part of the world unfolding stories at 3 p.m. on ADBN, channel 258 on DSTV, and Star Times, channel 140. Global Digest, your window to the world's current affairs, only on Advocate Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to the world where innovation meets opportunity, where ideas become empires. This is Market TV.
I am Idorian Flannan, and every week I'll be taking you inside the dynamic world of marketing and commercial business.
From groundbreaking startups to big businesses, Market TV brings you the best pricing and latest goods on display.
It's all about understanding your audience and staying ahead of the trends.
Witness the creative processes that drive the various brands.
Join us as we dive deep into the strategies that shape the commercial landscape. From streets to traditional advertising and social media, we cover it all.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or an aspiring entrepreneur, Market TV provides the insights you need to thrive.
This show gave us the tool to turn our vision into reality.
So, if you're ready to master the market, tune into Market TV every Saturday at 6 p.m.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
If you are not a judge, you are not a judge.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we no dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government should first place.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
In a world of overwhelming voices, where everyone has different opinion on different issues, it is important that we bring the core issue to the fore. Join me, Nancy Banigo, on Softline as we lend our voices to inform and influence your thoughts and actions. This is not just mere talk, it is an invocative program that touches the core of our existence.
Nigeria's battle with poliomyelitis, also known as wild polio, has been proclaimed a huge success as there has been no recorded case of wild polio virus since 2016. The last case was recorded in Borno State, Northeast Nigeria in 2016. World Health Organization certified Nigeria as polio-free in 2020.
Polio has ended in our country in a proud dawn for all Nigerians.
UNICEF confirms over 270 million doses of vaccines are administered yearly to sustain Nigeria's polio-free status. Health specialists for social behavior change highlighted need for evidence by planning with data to address polio in each community to keep up awareness on the disease.
The key principle for social behavior change is really to have evidence. So we want data to guide all our planning and activities so that we can get the best results. And to get them on board to really also at community level to start demanding the polio vaccine for the protection of all children, ultimately so that all parents would automatically vaccinate their children every single campaign round, so that their children are protected, but also the community children are protected. We cannot do the same activities and same message everywhere, because every community is a little bit different, and not only looking at different states in the north, but also south is different. And even within community, you have smaller groups. Not all parents are the same. Younger parents may have different priorities and values than parents that have many children already.
District Governor, Rotary District 9127, Dr. Mike Ukachi-Nwanoshiri, emphasized the need for continuous vaccination to maintain a polio-free country.
So the tendency of polio to occurring again is alien because it's a waterborne disease. So if we don't continue the vaccination, we'll go back to where we started. That's why the collaboration is very, very important. Like other organizations that are joining force with us when we started it in 1983. If not so, it might be a problem where everybody, the children, included. With that collaboration from other countries and they're buying the ideas and understanding the program initiated by Rotary International, that's why we're able to control it. Remember some years back, many countries today we are talking about 2, and we are hoping in the next year to be 0.
District Polio Plus Committee Chairman, Dr. Mrs. Khadijat Kubarat Yusuf, called for more advocacy, confirming improvement in acceptability of polio vaccine in the country.
Initially, there was serious issue of rejection, but with advocacy, education, and knowledge, more parents are now encouraged to participate willingly without giving stress to parents. Monitoring and accountability is going on. WHO on the field, the UNICEF, Rotarians.
While continued threat of disease resurgence requires active vigilance and proactive community engagement, Polio Eradication Program of the World Health Organization Regional Office for Africa, in collaboration with Global Polio Eradication Initiative, has set in motion a comprehensive array of prevention and response strategies to sustain Nigeria's polio-free status. These encompass implementation of supplementary immunization activities while building up human workforce as well as providing technical assistance. Others include enhancing surveillance endeavors and refinement of data and information management, which notably includes utilization of cutting-edge geospatial technologies to reach every last child and make polio history once and for all. Peace. Ogenegbawe, ADBN News.
To staying tuned to ADBN television. It's about that time for us to have the conversation as it concerns Nigeria's interest at COP29. Now, the world will converge in Azerbaijan, Baku to be specific, in the next coming days to discuss the need to protect the climate and consider efforts in that agenda. Nigeria is also going to be amongst the Committee of Nations represented there. Now, on the program this morning, joining me to have this conversation is Mr. Lucky Abeng, a climate justice research lead, Eco Steward, and Humanitarian Foundation. Good morning to you, Mr. Abeng, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's look at the major question in terms of what should matter for Nigeria's climate ambitions. In a country, when you look at the contribution in terms of percentages as against what the world and industrialized nations are contributing, we have high ambitions. Over time, we've heard some monies, which is always going to be the concern for Nigerians, monies like the Paris Club refund. And even when it comes to conversations around Nigeria's National Council on Climate Change, the issues there always boil down to, should I say, Naira and Kobo or dollar and pounds. Let's get your perspectives on our representation at COP29.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, viewers. I'm happy to be here again to discuss climate change and Nigeria's priorities for COP29. I think earlier this year, Nigeria did a costing for what it will cost for us to implement the target in our NDCs, and interestingly, we'll be needing around $263 billion annually up until 2030. And interestingly, this year has really been very, very engaging with evident impact of climate change with the flooding across a couple of states in Nigeria. COP29 is really a critical conversation. This will mean 29 years ago that world leaders have been meeting to discuss. And for this year, it's critical because, just like you highlighted, money, Naira and Kobo, this year we'll be seeing negotiations around climate finance. And what we'll be seeing will be the introduction of the new collective quantified goal on climate finance that is going to replace the Paris Agreement 100 billion that everybody is aware of. For Nigeria, our priorities would really be, before we go to the priorities of Nigeria, we've seen conversations from the National Council of Climate Change, the Ministry of Environment. There have been series of convening to actually prepare Nigeria to participate effectively at COP29. But our priorities, I think, should really align with what the African Group of Negotiators, which is the unified bloc under which Africa would go to the COP, even though every country attends as a party. But of course, in order for your interest to carry weight, you also need to go as a unified bloc. We have what is called G77 and China. We have the EU coming as a bloc. But for us in Africa, we'll go as the African Group of Negotiators, which Nigeria is part of. But aside that, we'll also have our own national priorities, even though there's a collective African priority, which has always been more than doubling of adaptation finance. And like you rightly mentioned, we contribute less, a little bit around 5%. As a continent to the global emissions, so we are not really responsible for what is causing climate change. However, we have our own priorities, and like I mentioned, for Africa, it is more than doubling of adaptation finance. But with the conversation that we've been seeing recently, policy change from the government, there's heavy conversation around green hydrogen, and also the government is really heavy on AI as well. But the question we are asking the government is, for the frontline communities, the livelihoods are at stake, right? So if we're bringing the conversation of green hydrogen, EVs, and all, we need Nigerians to be alive to be able to even have access to these things. So that is why we are still saying that there is need to look at the conversation of more than doubling of adaptation finance. And interestingly, the African Coalition for Sustainable Energy Access, it's called ASEA, just recently did a convening in Yaoundé, where they brought about over, I think, 50 young experts from across Africa joining their counterpart, over 100 in Yaoundé. So we had about 32 African countries convening to further press what the need for Africa should be at COP29. And there was a declaration that came out from that meeting, which is called the Yaoundé Declaration. This is a declaration from young climate activists, experts coming together and say this should be Africa's position. And I think that would be a very good declaration that the Nigerian government should look at as well, and then see how they can pick some priorities for Africa, and then align it to our national determined contribution that is currently going a revision process called the NDC 3.0. So heavily our priorities should really look at adaptation for Nigerians.
Well, quite beautifully outlined in the background of what our delegates at COP29 will be looking to foster in their conversations. But coming back to another growing concern is the evidence of climate change in Nigeria this year. Flooding, yes, very devastatingly. The last time you were here on the program, we looked at it extensively.
Yes.
And in keeping with what has been done over time in terms of providing finances to mitigate issues of environmental impact, the challenge is that most Nigerian states are not even aware on how they can access this ecological fund. Whilst ecological fund is different from what Nigeria will be doing at COP29, the challenge is on the awareness creation and the accessibility of the funding that we require to fight against climate change in Nigeria. What can be done to better this advocacy?
Well, I've always advocated that we need to really decentralize climate change conversation. I still have the opinion that the conversation is largely centered around Abuja and Lagos, as you would see. And you even have people clamoring to even migrate to Abuja or to be in Lagos to be part of the climate change conversation. But I must salute the resolute passion of young people, young Nigerians. I'm beginning to see an interest from young people across various subnational levels, drumming support for climate change awareness, climate change education. But of course, climate change awareness and education will really make sense when there are subnational policies that would enable free awareness and seamless advocacy, right? But of course, advocacy also comes with some form of resources. You would need resources to create, to organize very impactful advocacy. But at subnational level, it is very difficult because even states are struggling to carry out their daily activities as state. But with what we see, you've mentioned the ecological funds, but to address a lot of this funding challenge, there is the loss and damage fund we talked about that is currently, we're still struggling to see how that fund would be operationalized. But there is need for Nigerian government to really prepare, not just government delegate alone, because we are also seeing that, and as civil society, we are strongly encouraging government to open up COP29 participation to allow civil society come in as well, because they serve as very important non-state actors to actually give government as well up-to-date information and data as well to support their participation at the COP. So in terms of advocacy, I would say there is need for subnational government to be fully involved in terms of policies. We have seen states like Adamawa, there are states like Kano, and I think Kaduna recently drafting their own climate change policy framework. These frameworks will really encourage increase in advocacy and awareness, and also mindset shift as well on the role that individuals play in ensuring that we all contribute to effective climate action.
Now, on transparency on the part of the government in spending or disbursing these funds as provided for, we're also told that the Nigerian Council on Climate Change has established a portal,
yes,
and is also looking to train some Nigerians who will be working in that process. Can you bring us up to speed on how this would enhance transparency and accountability in the sector?
Well, I have seen that, the portal, and I hope that the Council on Climate Change will actually see this conversation. That I did raise some concerns around that portal, because we really need to have inclusive platforms. The portal so far encourages participation from ministries, departments, and agencies as well, because that's a portal to apply for COP29 badge, right? But it doesn't really make it friendly for civil society who play a critical role in supporting government effort in addressing climate change issues. So whilst we prepare to go to Baku in a couple of days, I think we still have a few window of opportunity for the government, especially through the National Council on Climate Change, to bring in civil society's input. There's so much more that civil society can really contribute, even in terms of resource mobilizations. You see the CSOs also playing an important role in developing proposals and also getting a few resources into the country. There is that need for them to align resources that they get and also what government is also going to be getting from funding facilities like the GCF and other facilities that you have. If we bring this together and work in a collaborative manner, I think we can achieve so much more than allowing the government alone to carry the burden. So we're calling on the government as Eco Steward and the Humanitarian Foundation to really look into the portal, because I'm aware that portal is for badge application alone. We're looking if this is going to also metamorphose into probably a permanent portal for other kind of engagement for the council. But for now, I think there's room for improvement to make it more inclusive.
You had also talked about the fact that countries attend as parties at COP29, but it will be stronger if our voices are concerted under Africa as a bloc.
Yes.
But there are now challenges in how much was apportioned to Africa in previous COPs. This is the 29th edition.
Yes.
And over time, they said only 20% of the global adaptation of finance between 2021 and 2022 was received by Africa. Do you have any convictions that the European Union or even the United Nations Assembly would also more like upscale the amounts being apportioned to Africa as a bloc?
Well, interestingly, the African Group of Negotiators, the AGN, because like I said earlier, we are looking at the new collective quantified goal. There are issues around the NQCG, as they call it. They've not agreed on the quantum yet. But the AGN has, in their last meeting, proposed a $1 trillion as the quantum for the new quantified collective goal on climate finance. And I think this just really shows how ambitious we should be. Looking at the challenges and the issues we had with the Paris Agreement, where world leaders had agreed from developed countries to commit 100 billion every year up until 2025, but we couldn't really see any transparency because at COP28 in Dubai, Africa also raised that issue that we need evidence. Show us how you said you've met the 100 billion, but there were no clear evidence. And I think it's important to mention here that there is also a campaign by the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. It's called the Keep Your Promise campaign. These are campaigns that really wants to hold developed countries to account and say, you made a commitment for $100 billion, and Africa has seen that we contribute less. We are suffering more the impact of climate change, right? So if we can't trace the 100 billion, and then we are going to start negotiation around the new collective quantified goal, and Africa is already proposing $1 trillion through the African Group of Negotiators and other. There is need to really keep that promise and then see how clearly Africa can be able to access some of this finance in a way that is going to be easy to access, because there are also a lot of bottlenecks. We see issues with the Green Climate Fund. It's very difficult to access, and other funding. So yes, we are really drumming support, and I think once again I would really recommend that the government of Nigeria look at the Keep Your Promise campaign and also the more than doubling of adaptation finance Yaoundé Declaration. It holds so much strong requests that Africa could look on, and Nigeria could leverage on some of those to also be in the negotiation room and say this is where we think we really need this finance to go to.
Now, harping on the adaptation funding, it's also important to look at some of the numbers that Nigeria is also requesting for. Nigeria, under its National Adaptation Plan, is requesting for over $142 billion.
That's true.
And they're citing the fact that this year alone in Nigeria, 34 states were affected, 217 local government areas, and over 1 million people were affected.
Yes.
They are saying that this money should also find a way to trickle into the pockets of the victims of flood through what they are saying should be a grant funding. Is this indeed some of the advocacy that Nigeria needs to re-echo in Azerbaijan?
Of course, interestingly, yes. The call from Yaoundé, the Yaoundé call clearly stated that we would need grant-based finance than loan, because if you look, we're already as developing countries indebted to the IMF, the World Bank, and we can't continue collecting loans because if you're giving loans is not climate finance. You can't call loans as climate finance, you know. The Global Center for Adaptation really raised concerns from their 2023 report that there's been a decline in adaptation finance, about 7% from 5%. We're seeing a decline. So whatever amount Nigeria has captured, if you look at our NDC costing, 46% of the total amount we're looking for from the $263 billion, 46% in the Nigerian government is saying will go to adaptation, right? But there are strong needs that funding that we are requesting has to come as grant and not loans, because we are already overburdened with loans from even COVID era. We are still paying loans, and if you look at how the economy is going, inflation rate is terrible. We can't really survive and really feel the impact of climate solutions if we get financed that are loan-based. So yes, one of the requests to COP29 in Azerbaijan is grant-based financing.
Now, whilst we talk about climate change, and it might sound lightly vague to a number of persons, one of the issues or the impact of climate change, which is very relatable to everyone, is when we relate it to food security.
Yes.
Now, a lot of farmlands devastated during the floods. We're looking at the impact on livelihoods of the agricultural system in Nigeria.
Yes.
In terms of advocacy, I know we've talked about the ecological fund. Are there no other issues in terms of food security that can be presented as a case at COP29?
Of course. So the entire conversation around food security all boils down to the negotiations around adaptation, right? Because you have agriculture under adaptation, and there are issues around a green world text should be used. Is it food security? Is it agroecology and all? So I'm really keen to know the negotiators who are going, because sometimes it's very difficult to even know who the negotiators for Nigeria are. Negotiating the various tracks that we have, or the thematic focus that we have. We're looking forward to seeing who the various negotiators are, especially those that will be going on the track of adaptation, because just I think 2 weeks ago, a few of our colleagues returned from Addis, where they had the agroecology summit. This is also Africa trying to prepare to ensure that we see clearly in the negotiation text that agroecology is really captured, and then we have a clear roadmap of how we intend to address the issues of food security in Africa. Whether with the flooding that we've seen, the issue, those who are dependent on dry season farming are also going to experience their own challenges as well. So we are really facing a huge crisis of food security. And we hope that when we get to Baku, we'll really get some good outing around those things. But we are preparing also advocacy messages as well. I know as civil society, we will be meeting in Baku to ensure that we leave no stone unturned in ensuring that we bring up the issue of food security, and also, of course, in general adaptation. Last year in Abuja, Nigeria, here there was the conference on agricultural adaptation as well that came up with an Abuja declaration. And I think these are some of the declarations that the government need to also look at, because there are strong recommendations on how we can address the issues of food security in a changing climate that we are seeing today. And we are happy to present some of the declarations, the Abuja declaration, the Yaoundé declaration, and also the Keep Your Promise campaign that is currently ongoing.
Now, talking about some of the areas Nigeria can do better, you had outlined it earlier, but it's in terms of how much we contribute to the emission of greenhouse gases. We're told Nigeria contributes 70%. Now, there have been conversations around rural electrification projects and the use of renewable energy, particularly mini solar grids in rural communities. But the cost of this renewable energy, you had mentioned EVs earlier, continues to draw concern.
Yes.
The administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu also talked about the presidential CNG initiative. Over time, Nigerians have analyzed how slow it is in the rollout of such vehicles and initiatives. Is there anything that can be done in line with this representation at COP29 to speed up these efforts back here at home?
Yes, thank you for that question. What can be done would really be to invest in research and development, R&Ds. And I look forward to seeing that the government delegation will go to COP29 with the academia, represented from the academia. There was the event that held last month, and there was what's it called now? An exhibition for an EV car. And then when we asked the exhibitors the cost for that EV car, it was roughly around 30 million. It's still really expensive, right? This is due to the fact that they said most of the parts for these vehicles to be assembled were all imported, right? So it's high time we start getting our academia heavily involved in these conversations. For those who are even using solar, We now see that there are recommendations to leave tubular batteries to lithium batteries because you feel they have longer shelf lives. And the lithium batteries are even more expensive. So for those who have invested a minimum of probably 2 million to get tubular batteries, they are now being told that they need to migrate to lithium batteries, right? So if we begin to invest in our research and development, we have a lot of technical schools in Nigeria who ought to be part of these climate change conversations of renewable energy. We're still experiencing the issues of national grid collapsing, right? So if you have people generating their own power through the various energy mix that we have, first of all, I think we must acknowledge the effort of the government of the day, starting from the last administration, decentralizing power and giving access to other players to also generate electricity. But then we now need to invest more on our research and development to enhance the level of renewable energy and the kind of renewable energy access that we even provide to the people. Maybe if we have that, we can start seeing cheaper versions or more affordable, because the SDG 7 say it has to be affordable energy. We don't have affordable energy currently. It's still really expensive energy, and I think one solution will be to heavily invest in our research and development in the country.
Now, if you just tuned into ADBN television, it's a conversation on Nigeria's interest ahead of COP29 scheduled for Baku in Azerbaijan. With less than 11 days to go, Nigeria's delegates are packing their bags and getting ready to push the course on climate change as convened by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, it's pertinent that we put it into perspective following the outcomes of the impact of climate change in Nigeria this year. We had earlier told you that 34 out of the 36 states in Nigeria were adversely affected by floods. 217 local governments impacted and over 1 million persons also losing livelihoods. We had looked at states like Bauchi, where we saw a lot of persons displaced and resultantly accommodated in IDP camps. But in keeping with all of this, what is the Nigerian Council on Climate Change doing, and how would post-COP29 inform Nigerians more on the position of the governments to protect their interests? With me in the studio is Mr. Lucky Abeng, and we've been discussing on some of the highlights of these features. But in closing,
yes,
the issue would be 29 years after, post-COP29, how do Nigerians come back to the table and be able to point at this and that and say, these are some of the outcomes and these are some of the agenda-setting milestones we have recorded as a country in keeping with tackling climate change?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Nigeria's post-COP29 conversations. First on the list will really be to return and confirm to Nigerians that the loss and damage fund has really been operationalized, and also this is the framework through which we can engage through some of those funds, and also to know if the new collective quantified goal framework was really adopted, what are the opportunities within this, while we also continue other areas of advancing green energy or green hydrogen, as the conversation may be. I think the last time I had the opportunity to have a conversation with the essay to the President on climate change, he was really mentioning some of the priorities of Nigeria to really include exploring the AI option as well. It's good to explore AI option, artificial intelligence in data capturing, because we really need data to back up our claims in Nigeria of the impact and effect of climate change. Most of the times we bank on data from either the World Bank or the IPCC or other regional body, but we need to now start generating our own data to influence the kind of frameworks or enhance the kind of frameworks we have. So for post-COP29, it will really be good for the government of the day through the National Council on Climate Change to bring together civil societies who are also going to be at the COP as well, to harmonize our participation at the COP, and also accept recommendations from non-state actors, and then harmonize whatever framework we need to come up with. I'm aware that by February of 2025, our NDC 3.0 should be ready to be submitted to the UNFCCC, which will also now show us clearly what Nigeria's priorities are going forward in the next 5 years. But yes, we're looking forward to what post-COP29 will hold for Nigeria.
Now, there's also the role of big brothers to Nigeria, the likes of emerging economies like China, Saudi Arabia, and the likes. It's also on the shortfalls of funding. I remember in COP27, one of the issues there were despite beautiful projections on paper, there was that shortfall in funding.
Yes.
Do you think that some of these emerging economies who thrive lively on industrialization, which adversely affects climate change, would have the sincerity of purpose to also lend a helping hand to Nigeria and the other League of African Nations?
Well, that question, we're even looking at the US election right now because they also play a very critical role. Donald Trump, if he comes in, he's saying he's going to pull the US out of the Paris Agreement, which is going to be a really big blow because the US as well need to really pay a lot for the climate change that we are seeing. But for China, for Russia, because I think the major three polluters, you have the US, China, and Russia as well. We really need to hold them to account, right? But we are just really following up what the conversation looks like, and in terms of we've not really seen commitment. There's been a decline from developed countries who are supposed to be contributing to the various climate finance fund that we have, which should be some of the reasons why we've seen a decline even into the finance that even countries from the global south can access. But we would really be on their neck at COP29 in Baku in Azerbaijan, hoping that when we return, we will see some clear framework on how we can assess.
Well, we have but 5 minutes to wrap up this conversation. I'll borrow something from what you said, holding them by their necks.
Yes.
And in my interpretation, it's operationalizing climate justice. Over time, they talked about the loss and damage fund as a way of holding such nations accountable by mandating them to pay some sort of compensation into it. I don't know how that is working, and is that indeed the only way to operationalize climate justice?
The loss and damage fund was really pushed by even African countries, the African group of negotiators at COP27 in Egypt. It took a while before we saw the operationalization of the funds in COP28 in Dubai. After Dubai, it's been struggle back and forth to have the steering committee for that fund. Not just until 2 months ago, we're seeing that there is now probably a head. The US is also going to be heading that particular funding. We have not seen, the last contribution to that fund was the $700 million we saw in Dubai. But is it just through pronunciation alone? And this is where the issue of climate justice comes in. There is the common but differentiated responsibility that is contained in the Paris Agreement, which states that developed countries will really support, not just support, clearly pay up for the impact of climate change that they are responsible for. Operationalizing the loss and damage fund is still even a challenge up to this point. It has not moved from paper to implementation. We are still looking at countries redeeming their commitment as well. So part of the conversation that will be reminded in Baku would really be to ask, where are we with the loss and damage funds? We ought to have had countries assessing the funds by now, but technical issues, glitches here and there, not being able to finally agree on who the steering committee would look like and all of that. So COP29 in Baku will really be a heavy conversation of two weeks. In a couple of days from now, there will be a lot of questions and I think civil society will be asking a lot of questions. Also, I want to believe that government delegations as well from developing countries in the global south, including Nigeria, will be asking questions that where are we? Is the fund ready? How can we assess it? What is the framework for assessing some of these funds? And also, what role does civil society and also young people play? Because lest I forget, we're also pushing and supporting as Eco Steward, recommending that the government really push youth-led climate governance participation at the COP, because there's the issue of intergenerational equity. Those who are leading ahead are already getting old and they need to pass the baton as well. But we need to have very, very formidable young people who can also take up the conversation. We do have a space for young people in our Climate Council, but I don't think the Climate Council has been considered yet. It's only just headed by the president. So there are a lot of conversations going up to COP29 in Baku. Loss and damage will be part of it.
Well, we appreciate you, Mr. Lucky Abeng, for taking our time as an Eco Steward to lend your voice to this advocacy, and we appreciate you for making an appearance on the program.
Thank you so much.
Well, be reminded that you can rewatch this conversation on our YouTube channel at ADBN TV, Nigeria's Interest at COP29. 11 days to go from today. It will be spanning from the 11th of November to the 22nd of November as the world converges at Baku in Azerbaijan to demand for climate justice and also the improved funding to protect the globe against the impacts of climate change. My name is Beecher Bryan, thanking you for being a part of this conversation. We'll be right back after this timeout to hand you over to our Abuja Sports editor, Samuel Adeleke.
Welcome to the world where innovation meets opportunity, where ideas become empires. This is Market TV.
I am Idorian Flannan, and every week I'll be taking you inside the dynamic world of marketing and commercial business.
From groundbreaking startups to big businesses, Market TV brings you the best pricing and latest goods on display.
It's all about understanding your audience and staying ahead of the trends.
Witness the creative processes that drive the various brands.
Join us as we dive deep into the strategies that shape the commercial landscape. From streets to traditional advertising and social media, we cover it all.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or an aspiring entrepreneur, Market TV provides the insights you need to thrive.
This show gave us the tool to turn our vision into reality.
So, if you're ready to master the market, tune into Market TV every Saturday at 6 p.m.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on ADBN TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
No matter wetin I see, enough fit make mouth heavy to talk am. That's now why people dey talk.
You know wetin dey worry you, but you no go fit take help yourself.
In this kind of situation now, what if they really no talk to una? Wetin be the way forward?
They go bury our chairman on Thursday. We go remain here.
Make we talk good where we dey see good, and where we know say we no dey see good, make we also dey talk am.
No woman, no mother deserve to know the grave of his child.
The bank manager, the bank executive, they are the one the government to first pay.
People They Talk, the show on Monday to Friday by 5 p.m. on top ADBN TV.
Thanks for staying with us on the program. It's about time for us to hand you over to our Abuja Sports editor, Samuel Adeleke, for ADBN Sports at 10, as he would relieve some of the highlights from last night's UEFA Champions League with shocking defeats to Pep Guardiola's Manchester City and Real Madrid. And a build-up into tonight's action with Arsenal looking to go one better in closing the gap at the top on the log standings. Hello, Mr. Samuel Adeleke. Good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning, Bito. Good to see you this Wednesday morning, of course, as we share the latest again in the world of sport. So much going down. The Champions League is one that is gaining a lot of attention. And Bito, Madrid appears to, of course, be having a slump in form. They lost to Barcelona in their Clasico recently, and Milan, who are 7th in the Serie A, came to Spain last night, of course, to defeat them. Do you think the absence of Toni Kroos is the issue, or the signing of Kylian Mbappe as Soma, of course, unsettled that team.
I feel it's more on the signing of Kylian Mbappe, because having watched the El Clasico and last night's game, despite Kylian scoring in the El Clasico and having his goal chalked up for offside, there seems to be a lack of chemistry between Vinicius Junior and Kylian Mbappe. Whilst Karim Benzema was in that lone striking role for Real Madrid that saw them win successive Champions League titles back-to-back, that clicking form between Vinicius and Benzema, who you will remember had accused Vinicius Junior some time back of playing against the team owing to his selfish style of play, seems to be hampering them. Even Jude Bellingham, you would see most of the times is visibly disappointed with the lack of clear balls through the middle of the park to him from Vinicius. So I think for Coach Carlo Ancelotti, he needs to fix that front three, or should I say front four, for them to have some of that chemistry we saw when Toni Kroos, Benzema, Vinicius Junior and Rodri were terrorizing teams in Europe.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's see what Carlo Ancelotti can do, of course, as the season progresses, to address the recent slump of Real Madrid. Let's talk about the official highlight of what to expect on the show this Wednesday morning now. We focus on Malam Shehu Diko and the National Sports Commission. Malam Shehu Diko has unveiled a plan to have 6 functional stadiums across Nigeria. We talked about it this morning. Michael Obasi, a sport journalist in Abuja here, a man who knows Malam Shehu Diko so well and has been speaking for him. Of course, sharing a lot of also information from Malam Shehu Diko will be on the program. He will join us virtually, of course, to talk about this latest plan by the chairman of the National Sports Commission. Also on the program this morning, Ruben Amorim just masterminded that stunning victory for Sporting CP against City last night. His final game in the Champions League, of course, in charge of Sporting CP. I still has a league game against Braga, one of his former clubs, this weekend. I will talk about him, listen to him also on the show this morning, as he came from behind to defeat City by 4-1 in Lisbon last night. Also on the program this morning, we go to the WTA finals in Saudi Arabia. Iga Swiatek fell to Coco Gauff in straight sets, and because of that defeat, Aryna Sabalenka becomes the world #1. I know Iga Swiatek, of course, must be so disappointed about that particular on double jeopardy, if you, of course, call it that. These are many more you can expect on this edition of the show. Odidi Obot is also in our studios in Uyo, and he will be